Okay, so I think we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. This session is teaching library instruction classes for science majors during the COVID-19 pandemic, various modes and varied experiences. Just a few reminders, this session will be recorded. And if you have any questions, please place them into the chat. I'll be acting as moderator this session, and I'll keep track of your questions. And then at the end of the presentation, Dr. Aditi Bandyopadhyay will respond to them. Okay, so I just want to quickly begin by reading the presenter's bio. Dr. Aditi Bandyopadhyay is a full professor at Adelphi University. She teaches library instruction classes for sciences students and is responsible for collection development in the sciences and technology. She has authored articles in the areas of library and information science and biological sciences, and she has presented at various professional meetings. Welcome, Dr. And I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for this wonderful introduction. And I would like to talk about my teaching experience in this COVID period. But I would like to put my slides on the slideshow mode first, and I'd like to disappear because in certain slides I put more text than I wanted to. So I want you to see my slides well, and I will be in the background talking to you. After I finish my lecture, I will be back again to take your questions, okay? So let's do that. Okay, now I'm going to disappear, okay? So I am Aditi Bandyopadhyay. I'm the science librarian at Adelphi University. Adelphi is a private academic institute and it is located on Long Island, New York. But before I talk about my teaching experience during the COVID time, I would like to tell you what I did in pre-pandemic time. Okay, so all my library instructions in pre-pandemic time were held in person. Some sessions had active learning components, and in other sessions, I had interactive lectures that were supplemented with handouts and or course LibGuide. Okay. Almost all sessions provided students hands-on experience with searching databases and information retrieval. But then, what was my experience, of online teaching that time? Nothing, zero. Okay, I never taught any type of library instruction in asynchronous mode or over Zoom. I never recorded any library instruction lectures digitally or created any library instruction videos for a course. I am a novice, okay? So what happened when Adelphi University administrators decided to move all in-person classes to remote learning environment on March the 23rd, 2020, I had already finished teaching all my Spring 2020 library instruction classes in person. As a result, none of my library instruction sessions were affected in Spring 2020 because of the sudden changes in instruction format. So, but those things changed, okay? In fall 2020 and in spring 2021, my learning curve of teaching online rapidly changed. I'm going to show you the list of classes, that I did online in fall 2020 and spring 2021. So the first class I taught in fall 2020 was an online synchronous library instruction. This class was Chemistry 193, and I was teaching this class in person throughout my time at Adelphi. In spring 2021, my in-person library instructions for Bio112 needed to be converted to a pre-recorded asynchronous video lecture. Another class in spring 2021 became the same. It was Environmental Studies capstone course. We call it ENP 410. And the professor asked me to have a recorded and a pre-recorded asynchronous library instruction for her students. Another class I did in spring 2021 was Chemistry 194. and I taught it in Hyflex mode. So I'm going to talk about my classes and my experience, of teaching those classes online as as a novice, online instructor. So first I will talk about Chemistry 193. It is a first research seminar course for first year chemistry majors. Students learn in this class how to locate chemistry or biochemistry related articles. They should be recently published in Scientific America or American Scientist. Okay, but I had to mention something. Although articles published in these magazines are comparatively easy for the first year chemistry majors to read and understand than the research articles published in scholarly scientific journals, but searching for and retrieval of recently published chemistry or biochemistry related articles in these two magazines are not straightforward processes. Why did I say that? Actually, the process is a multi-step process compounded by authors-imposed embargo on the availability of full text of many recently published articles in third-party vendor databases, such as EBSCO's Academic Search Complete or ProQuest Central databases. I'm sure many of you have seen those science magazine articles or other magazine articles that are there in HTML version, okay? But the professor wanted students to email the PDF version of the article. What's the problem with the HTML version? They don't have any graphics, charts, tables, it's all black and white. So that was completely no for acceptance, by the professor. We have, electronic subscription to Scientific American. So students, could, as a single title, and student could get the PDF directly from the journal website. But we do not have any electronic subscription to American Scientist. It's only available in print in our library. So when I had to do this class, I was thinking, is there any way I can find those articles electronically? Because, the third-party vendors databases were not much help. So I found the journal website, and they have all the articles in HTML version, but with bright, colored graphics, everything looked fabulous, okay? But the problem is not all articles were free on that website. I found out some articles can be read freely, but there are many articles that are available only for purchase or through individual subscriptions. I did not see any option for library subscription on this site. So what I did, I had to prepare handouts, and because, I used the Paint 3D program and MS Word to catch the screen or capture the screen, and then, provided the information textually and graphically. It became, multi-page handouts, okay? So I set them in Word and sent it to the professor to put them on the course module. Okay, so what course Moodle, sorry, I would say, not module, but Moodle. Okay, so then, I'm going to talk about my experience, when I taught this class. There were 18 students, right? And on the actual day of online instruction, I used the Zoom link provided by the chemistry instructor to connect myself to the class with a bit nervousness and anxiety, because I was not sure that my connection will work, network connection, but it worked, okay? And I saw, the students came into the virtual classroom, but guess what? Nobody showed their faces or turned on their cameras, including the chemistry instructor, okay? And, I was the only human being with a face. I was feeling like that I was talking to a black wall divided into 19 perfect squares, okay? After teaching in person for 20 plus years, it was a totally different experience. I felt a little uneasy to teach a live audience without any nonverbal or verbal communication and without any visual clues from the listeners to understand how I was doing with my very first synchronous online teaching. To me, my own lecture sounded very much like a monologue in a play. I turned off my own camera as I demonstrated searching and retrieval for articles. I used those handouts and show them step-by-step process, okay? But the funny thing is, I was teaching in real time to real people who are faceless and expressionless. No questions were asked, and there were no communications for me to understand whether or not the students were able to follow me without any problems. I finished my session covering all the points and information that I wanted to share with them, and they were solid 15 minutes late for question and answers. But guess what? I requested them, please ask me questions. I would be happy to tell you or explain again the steps, that were not clear to you. But nobody sent me any questions. 5 minutes passed this way. So the instructor broke the silence, explaining the assignment to the students, and she thanked me for my time and sharing information with her class, and then encouraged the students to contact me by email if they need any help in the near future. As the students started to leave that virtual classroom, I heard a few thank you, and then, but I was still completely clueless how I did in my very first attempt to conduct a library instruction synchronously in a virtual classroom. Okay. Guess what? I contacted the professor at the end of fall 2020 semester. I said, did you get any evaluation or feedback from the students? Because I never taught this kind of class. She said, Aditi, I really did not have time to ask for any formal evaluation, but I saw that they did their assignment perfectly well. And I said, I did not get any research appointment. I guess, they got it. And she said, one thing I have to share with you, Aditi, students were very happy to see a real person on the screen talking to them. I said, boy, that is something, right? I was thrilled to know that I did not disappoint either the instructor or her students with my very first attempt of teaching a virtual class in real time. That was my very first experience. Now I'm going to talk about another class where I used pre-recorded asynchronous video lecture. This class is known as Bio112. It is a laboratory course providing students with the basic understanding of scientific methods, including the formulation of scientific questions and hypotheses. This course is offered mainly in spring semester. It has multiple sections. There are always 8 to 10 sections and 20 to 25 students per section. The duration of each class was 2 hours, 30 minutes per week. So what do they learn in this class? Okay, the students learn how to identify research, review, and popular science magazine articles by examining their formats and contents. And they also learn how to search for peer-reviewed full-text original research articles, searching Scopus database to substantiate the findings in their lab reports. Good enough. Okay. So what I did in my pre-pandemic library instruction sessions, okay, so I did use clicker to measure students' baseline knowledge of scientific literature, and also I measured the disparities between students' perception and their actual knowledge of scientific literature. By the way, I published an article in the Journal of Academic Librarianship in 2013, based on my experimental teaching for this course, okay? And in that class, I always brought physical copies of different kinds of articles, research, review, and science magazine, and students would look at them and they would examine the formats and the contents. Then I will ask them questions, different type of questions, and they would have active participation in the classroom discussion on the formats and contents of research, review and popular science magazine articles. After we finish the discussion on scientific literature, we would move to the second part of the library instruction, where they would have hands-on experience, of Scopus database searching for peer-reviewed original research articles and their full text retrieval. Okay. And it took about 2 hours, 30 minutes, almost the same time that they spent in their lab, lessons. Okay. So at the end of those classes, teaching, I always give them an evaluation form that we developed inside the library or within our libraries to for students' evaluation. They would leave their feedback with their instructor, and instructor would give it to me at the end of the session. So I did another thing. I was always curious, how much did they retain at the end of the semester? So what I did, I always taught those in-person classes in January and February of spring semester. Then there would be a gap about 1 or 1.5 months, sometimes 2 months, depending on the length of that spring semester. And then I would go back to revisit those classes and give them a follow-up quiz to see, the retention rate. I'm going to publish a paper, on that experience and the results I have with me, but that I did in my pre-pandemic time. But I heard, at the end of fall 2020, that all spring 2021 sections of Bio112 would be moving online, and there would be 8 sections taught by 5 biology faculty in spring 2021. And there would be about 160 students in those sections. So I got an email from the biology course coordinators, okay, and they wanted me to prepare pre-recorded Bio112 library instruction on Zoom or Panopto to be added as an asynchronous module. So I had to prepare, 2 asynchronous video lectures in clouds using Zoom, and I had written scripts to follow to narrate on those videos. So, there was one video lecture on scientific literature, and I used, 2 examples of research articles with the one with the traditional format and another one with the non-traditional format. I had 1 review article and 1 science magazine articles, right? I downloaded the PDF on my desktop. I had a PowerPoint presentation to discuss all the steps, why they are important, how to look at them. And I pull up each time 1 article that I talked about, okay? The length of that video lecture was 1 hour, 8 minutes, 19 seconds, okay? And then I produced another video where I talked about Scopus search, for original research articles. But the changes had to be there for asynchronous video lecture. I could not use any clickers. By the way, we don't have any eye clickers. So, so that part I had to, eliminate. So I did not have any scope for measuring the baseline knowledge of the students about scientific literature. I did not have any scope for interactive discussion and obtain the instant feedback from the students to establish the needs for learning the structure and contents of those scientific articles. There were no hands-on activities because it's all asynchronous. Okay, so what I did, I recorded, the demo of searching Scopus for peer-reviewed original research articles on a biological topic, but I had to incorporate all the details of the search strategies that I employed in my narration. And I also demonstrated a retrieval full text of research articles, using various type of library resources and services. Now, what are those resources and services? I had to show them how to get the full text from online database, such as Scopus, and then if the articles are not available electronically, how to get the scanned or PDF copy from the print journals, and then if the articles are not available in print or electronic, then how to use the interlibrary loan services to get the articles outside Adelphi. So, I recorded those lectures, but not without any hiccups, okay? I had problems with internet, my computer, and other connectivity issues. When I was trying to record the lecture, looking at my scripts, I said a few wrong things, and I had to go back and start from scratch again, and that was really tiring. So after a few failed attempts, I was successful in recording the lecture. And when I finished recording, I sent the Zoom link to the coordinators for their review and comment. And when I got a little training over the Zoom from a person from our training center. We call it Faculty Center for Professional Excellence. And when we were talking about what to do things, and he was showing things over Zoom, and I said, what would be the best way to record this, on Zoom or Panopto? He said, Aditi, just record it on Zoom. You have an advantage of doing it. So, your recording, cloud recordings on Zoom would be automatically saved on Panopto, and there will be a folder where you can see the recording file, and you can keep it there and distribute, okay, later whenever you feel like. So, I never realized that Zoom recordings could expire within certain period of time. So when I recorded them and when I got okay from those coordinators, I said, okay, so here are the Zoom links, use it, in your section. But then within a month, I heard from many Bio112 instructors, hey, Aditi, the access expired, give us the link back. So I went back to my, cloud to find those recordings. There was nothing. I said, boy, what should I do? And then I sent an email to the FCP person, say, help me, And he said, Aditi, here is the link to your Panopto file. They are all there. Give them the Panopto recording. I was like, boy, I did not learn really Panopto. It just happened. Let me see how it looks like. So, I went to see my Panopto recording. I was listening to my own lectures, and they had, the lecture had closed captioning available. So I found out most of my lecture was captured, correctly, but there were certain phrases and words, from places to places that were not recorded correctly because I have non-American accents. And I think, sometimes the technology could understand me, and sometimes they failed to understand. And that messed up, things in places. So I had to correct them. I had to edit. And boy, and that day I discovered that technology has its own brain. I was both amused and horrified to see how the abbreviation of the proceedings of National Academy of Sciences was transcribed by the technology. I was, really scared. I said, no, I had to fix it. Otherwise, it would be so bad. And so I had to fix all the words, and it was very time consuming and tedious. Then I found out punctuations are not placed always in the right places. So I had to fix those problems too. After I fixed everything, I sent the Panopto link to my instructors. But remember, I had a follow-up quiz when I taught the classes in person. But, in this asynchronous mode, I did not have that scope. So when I was talking to my biology coordinators, I said, listen, I always had a follow-up quiz and we should have it. to see, you know, how much students learn from this asynchronous mode of library instruction. We agreed. I developed a fresh questionnaire with PDF articles and gave it to the coordinators to put on the scores module. Moodle. So then they converted it in a Google document and they posted and they let me review it, and it was completely anonymous. So student answered to those questions. So there were about 160 students. Some people later left those class sections, but it's about 160. But not everybody participated in the survey. So there were 149 responses altogether. 77.7% were freshmen, 13.4% were sophomore, and 7.4% were juniors, and 2% were seniors. Okay, when they were asked whether they have viewed the library instruction videos, and 96.6% said yes. And then there was a question when the article contains materials and methods, the results, how do you identify it? 94.6% identified it correctly as a research article. And they were asked to identify the research articles. 82% correctly identified the research article with the traditional format, and 6% correctly identified the research article with non-traditional format. When they were asked to identify the review articles, only 42.3% could identify correctly. And for popular science magazine articles, 62.4% correctly identified that article. Now, you may think that, so not many people learned it well, but the major purpose of this library instruction was to teach students how to identify research articles with the traditional format. But I was happy to see that some students remember how to identify review articles and popular science magazine articles, as well as a very small number of students could correctly identify the research article with non-traditional format. So then, what happened after I gave them these asynchronous video lectures for Bio112 course, two positive things happened. And remember, not everybody said that they watched a video. And one student, she came, she made research appointment with me, and she confessed that, she was overwhelmed with all the information I put in the video. So she said, I really want to talk to you. Can you give me a quick snapshot about all the things that you said? And, we had a lovely conversation, and she came back, to show me whether she could find right articles for her assignment. So I had 2 sessions with her on 2 different days. Okay, so then towards the end of our semester, she sent me an email saying, Professor Bandyopadhyay, would you like to talk to my sorority friends and about some tips of writing good papers? I was thrilled. I never had this kind of invitation before. So I said I would do it. I was not in New York State when I did it, did this presentation for her sorority. I was in Atlanta, I did it from the hotel room. I talked about plagiarism and importance of citing sources correctly in their paper, and it was well received. So, and then a few weeks ago, a faculty who taught 2 Bio112 section in spring 2021 has requested access to the Panopto recordings for the video lectures for his summer Bio112 class that would start on July 6th. And I was thrilled because, this is the first time they would use library instruction for their summer Bio112 class. I heard that once in a while they offered Bio112 in summer, but I never had any invitation to speak to those people in person because the classes were very intense and they did not want to give up the class time for library lecture. So those outcomes really had made me happy. Now I'm going to talk about another pre-recorded asynchronous video lecture that I prepared for Environmental Studies Capstone class, which is known as ENV 410. the faculty contacted me and asked me to prepare prepared an asynchronous video lecture for her students. And in this class, students write a paper on an environmental aspect. This past spring semester, students were asked to write papers on the impacts of climate change in the Arctic, and also on various regions and communities, how they are dealing with the effects of sea level rise, changes to habitat, vegetation succession, economic impacts, etc. So I did the same what I did for Bio112, but little bit, in a little bit different way. I met with the professors and I told that I would be creating a LibGuide using the sources and services within adult file libraries and beyond. And we agreed, and I developed the LibGuide. The name of the LibGuide is Arctic and Climate Change. And I wanted to supplement my video lecture. For that reason, I used that LibGuide. And my video lecture was centered around this LibGuide. I showed them all the resources I put there. And when the LibGuide was finished, I sent the link to the professor for her review. She okayed it. Then, after I recorded my lecture in cloud using Zoom, I sent a link to the recording for the professor to review. She liked it. And I had a demo of searching Scopus database. I used a number of search strategies with different keywords and the variants in my lecture. And I described each and every step in great details, so students would know what I did and why I did and how I did. Okay, so then another things I did in this video lecture, I talked about the importance of citing documents in research papers. I showed them our citation style guide for in-text citation and references. The length of the video was 1 hour 30 minutes, and after the professor okayed it, it was released to the student. But one thing I did, I took the initiative to develop a questionnaire, asked the professor whether she would be willing to distribute or email to her students for giving me feedback. And I was very transparent. I said, I never did these things before. And I need to know, what they felt about all the resources I'm creating. If this is my first time, if I know their feedback, it would be easier for me to improve my ability to create this kind of videos. And people are very nice, they understand, because most of us were on the same boat. And she says, Aditi, no worries, I will let them know about this question. Yeah, she kept her promise. She distributed it to her students, and students gave their feedback. But we did not have a lot of comments, but the overall responses were positive. Let me share them with you. So there were 7 students. The class had altogether 8 students, but only 7 participated in that survey. And all students found both the course LibGuide and the library instruction video very helpful. They could not find any least helpful resources. And 3 out of 7 students preferred synchronous in-person instruction in a classroom setting. Other 3 wanted asynchronous library instruction in the form of video lecture. Only 1 preferred synchronous online library instruction. Here are their individual comments. Okay, only 6 students wrote down some comments at the end. The comments are no comments. It was very helpful. They were both very helpful. I would much rather prefer an in-person version of this lecture. I feel like it is more personal and easier to ask questions as a whole. I do also believe that it is much easier to get distracted when it is asynchronous. Overall, I'm grateful for the LibGuide and Scopus instruction video, as they will be of great use to me in my project. Thank you for taking the time to make them. The instruction videos prepared by the librarian were extremely helpful in exploring the online website. Having several examples aided me personally to find articles and books needed for the class. Overall, I felt that the video was an effective way of teaching us how to use the Scopus database and the ENP 410 LibGuide. The use of captions especially is useful for people trying to find advice for a specific feature of the databases. Additionally, since the video is asynchronous and we have the ability to view it again after the initial assignment, we can view it again at any point as we go about writing our first draft. And the comments are very positive and I was thrilled. Now I'm going to talk about my last class in spring 2021. And I taught this class in Hyflex mode. Okay, as you know, the term Hyflex is derived from two words, hybrid and flexible. Okay, in a synchronous Hyflex course, students have two types of options. Okay, they can choose one of them. But regardless the option they choose, they should all have the same learning objectives. In spring 2021, chemistry 194 students had options, okay, to participate either in face-to-face synchronous class sessions in person, so they have to be in the classroom, or they could participate in face-to-face synchronous class sessions via video conference, okay, or Zoom in our case, because we use Zoom throughout our lectures. Okay. So this class is a second research seminar course for the first year students. And this spring, we had 13 students. And 10 of them took this course in person, being physically present on campus, and the remaining 3 students, they were attending the course remotely, but synchronously on Zoom. I had a Zoom meeting with the instructor in January 2021 to discuss the assignment. That time I came to learn the students should know how to do or conduct author search using SciFinder A. And they have to use the current chemistry faculty as authors to see what journal publications they have. So I prepared myself when I went on campus to teach the class, and I saw a lot of changes in the classroom. And, this was, almost after a year, okay? I did not teach anything in person before, starting from March 2020 to, I think it was also in March, okay, March 2021, almost, 12 months, okay, give and take. So I saw a lot of changes in the classroom. I saw the whole classroom is divided into 3 distinct zones with bright blue tapes. Chairs were placed 6 feet apart from each other. Then there were plenty of sanitizing solutions bottles, rolls of paper towels, and they also mounted sanitizer dispenser on the walls. And then I was kind of unhappy about learning that I have to wear mask when I would be teaching, although I had big distance between me and those students in the classroom. It was mandatory for us at Adelphi to wear masks, both students and faculty when they are together in the classroom. So I was kind of worried about lack of nonverbal communication, as mask covered about 75% of the surface area on our faces, right? And then, I was not sure they would understand me, when I'd be speaking through my double masks, okay? So when we all know that nonverbal communications are very important to enhance student performance and their engagement in the process of learning. We take, signals from their look, from the frowning on their foreheads, their smile, the way they say it, the way they look at their cell phone, everything, gives us the clues, whether they are enjoying it or having problem. But in this case, only I could see the eyes and nothing else. So, and I had to be mindful of the presence of students in 2 different settings and their learning needs, okay? I provided a live demo using SciFinder A and showed them how to do the author search. I used the chemistry faculty, some of them, their names as examples. And I was very surprised to know, with my accents and everything, they could understand when I was speaking through my mask, okay? And I was asking questions, they were giving me answers, and I could say that they were highly engaged in searching the database on their own devices. Guess what? Another proof I had, that they are listening to me. When I made a mistake, I was showing them how to find professor's profile on Google Scholar. And there was a professor, webpage, and I was scrolling down too fast, and I could not see the link to Google Scholar. But a student from my homie group, I would explain what I meant by homie group, said, hey, stop, you're scrolling down too fast. Okay, you missed it, just go up. And I was following his directions and I found out that link. So I was thrilled, boy, they're listening to me. Okay, so now the homie group. So now, I had the students in front of me, 10 students, no matter whether the faces are covered with mask or not, but we still can talk through our mask. I could see their expressions in their eyes. And, there was direct communication. But the thing is, with the remote group, I did not see them. I don't know their names, nothing, right? They existed when I heard their voices, right? But the instructor podium was placed in front of a camera in such a way they could see me and they could see the projector screen. So no problem. But I was having trouble to call them. So I started to call them as homies. So that was my homie group. But hey, credit does not go to me. I did not invent this term. I have to acknowledge this came from my daughter. In fall 2021, she was a freshman, at a college, and then she could not travel. It was not in New York State. So she could not travel there, and she was very disappointed taking everything online. But, my daughter is a very outgoing person, so she made a lot of friends online, and those are the students who also stayed home and took courses online. So they called each other homie, okay? So every time I heard conversation at late night from her room, I was wondering who she was speaking. She said, one of those homies, mommy. So that day when I was teaching in Hyflex, I said, I should call them homie because they are staying at home and listening to, and they liked the name. And the chemistry instructor who was in the class, she said, I like the name homie, but I told them the whole story, okay? So my homie group and my in-person group, they were, helping me, to let me know that they are understanding everything I'm saying. And at the end of the class, there were a lot of claps and, compliments, and I was very happy. Okay, so later on, I caught up with the professor and she said everything went well. They did, finish their assignment, no problem. And I did not have any research questions or an appointment later on. But, she did not, had any formal evaluation. And she's a mother of little 2 kids, and teaching chemistry online was not an easy, thing. So I understood completely. Okay. Now, after I finished everything, I was thinking, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the pre-recorded asynchronous video lectures? So from my experience, I learned, the students who talked to me from that sorority and other students who put their comments on the environmental studies course, I saw that many of them liked this pre-recorded lecture, okay, because they enjoyed the self-paced learning. They could play it whenever they want, and there is no need for us to scheduling library instruction or looking for a space or a room, which is a big relief. Okay, and the closed captioning can help students to understand instructor who have accents like me. And there are always some students who have hearing impairment, and they could read the captions and understand the contents very well. And there are usage statistics available on Panopto recording. We can use it. Okay, and the recording can be used by unlimited number of students at their convenience. And it can be reused in multiple sections and multiple semesters. That frees up the library instructor's time and energy from repeating the same lecture over and over again. And I did it, in my pre-pandemic time, when I taught Bio112 for 8 to 10 sections. Oh boy, I would teach 2.5-hour classes, 2 classes back to back. And it was so exhausting to repeat the same lecture, at the end of the day 5th, I would feel like I would faint out. So that was a big advantage, okay? But, not everything comes with, only good. There should be some bad sides. And here are the disadvantages. So when we use this asynchronous video lecture, we really need, training to learn technology and software. And there are so many options. You really need training, right? And as I told you, I had problems with the internet connection, computers, and other connectivity issues. One time my slide froze, and I still recorded everything because it was the last slide and showing my email communication. So that happened to me too. And the thing is, if you really want to be very creative and innovative, to develop this kind of asynchronous video, it is a real challenge, because you really need time to think about, to explore all that technology available, how you are going to use the contents from your pre-pandemic lecture and get the same experience in asynchronous mode. That's a real challenge. And I had to do everything in a very short period of time. Okay. And the thing is, students' participation in classroom discussion is not possible because it is asynchronous, and you cannot get the instant feedback from the students. That's another disadvantage, because we don't have any dynamic interactions with the students. That can create a disconnect between the librarian instructor and the students. And when they don't see you, they would never recognize you if you walk by, and they would not know that you are the person who created the video. So that's a big disadvantage. And, as I said, editing, it could be time consuming and tedious, editing captions. And, you need to update the contents every time a database changes its interface. And if you have any changes in your services or web pages disappears, or, they update something, a new, thing, new web page appeared on the topic. So you have to be, always on your toe to find, the latest thing to update your record. Okay. And then, it's on all the student, when they would view it and how much they would view it. We really don't have any control. They are not captive audience in a room anymore. So, and what I found, you really need a chunk of quiet time. Okay, and a quiet space, because I was working from home. So I chose late night, okay, because that time, everything was quiet and I could speak and record everything. Another thing I found out when I handed my lecture to the coordinators of courses, they used their own Moodle to place those records. So I did not have access. And for that reason, every time I needed to see what happened, I had to request them. So there is, less freedom there. So when I was, soul searching and reflecting back on my experiences, I had some questions in my mind. Now I'm going to share them with you, and you can tell me what you think, okay? So I heard from students that they love this pre-recorded lecture, right? And then I was thinking, when we would go back, if we, if we had to do this, all the classes that we teach in asynchronous mode, can we find time? Then another thing, in post-pandemic period, will there be demands for supplementing some or all in-person library instruction sessions with pre-recorded lectures? And I'm sure you all know how the classroom faculty are reluctant to give up time for library instruction, especially my science faculty. They're very nice to me. We are good friendship. But when I approach them, say, Aditi, they're so busy. Aditi, they would come to you. They're very lovely people, but they don't want to give up time. So now they know about the existence of pre-recorded lecture. And if we had to do many of them, and with our other job responsibilities, can we do it in post-pandemic period? So these are my questions to you. And this is the end of my presentation. Now we have some time for question and answers. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you for your time and attention. And I'm coming back to you. Okay, where I am. Hey.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bandyopadhyay.
Call me Aditi. Don't be so stubborn. Okay. Call me Aditi. Everybody calls me Aditi.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
So there is a question in the chat. The question is, how did you share your surveys with the students?
Through the instructor. I did not know them at all. So I sent it to my environmental science faculty. I said, listen, this is the first time I'm doing, I'm very nervous. Can you help me to find out from the students whether everything worked or not? Because I really want to improve my teaching experience next time if it's going to stay. And that's the way, the questions were distributed, and they returned the questionnaire. Everything was anonymous. And I did not handle anything directly from the students. It was between the students and their classroom instructor. So later she sent me a zip file with the responses, and I unzipped them and I saw them.
That answered the question.
Okay, anything else?
A few comments came in during the session, and I also noticed this as well, how the faculty that you worked with were open to Hyflex, and Jocelyn, and I've also experienced this as well, where there is some resistance to the Hyflex format.
That was the only class I did, and I really did not have many requests in Hyflex mode. But to tell you the truth, I really enjoyed the Hyflex class because this was very close to my in-class teaching experience, and I enjoyed it. I love the dynamic conversation. I ask questions and they give answers, and that really boosts up my energy. And I'm a person who loves to communicate with people, so I love Hyflex mode. And if I have to do it again, I'll do it again. Okay, so but I just taught only one class, and I really do not know whether there were resistance or not. As you raise the question, I'll try to find out. Okay, but right now I don't know much about the resistance.
Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Are there any other questions? So if there aren't any other questions, then the next session will begin at 2:15 p.m. And I just want to thank you, Aditi, and wish you all the best with the future of your research.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate all of you for your time and attention. And I also appreciate the opportunity that SUNYLA gave me to present my teaching experience with the audience. Thank you. And everybody should have a lovely afternoon. It's sunny on Long Island.
It's sunny upstate as well.
Oh, great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.